As a naturally skeptical person, I never believed in ghosts or anything paranormal. I studied science in college and prided myself on having rational, evidence-based beliefs. So when my friend Jen suggested we spend our weekend getaway at an old Victorian Airbnb rumored to be haunted, I scoffed at the idea. Though I thought it was silly, I finally agreed, thinking indulging her interest in the supernatural could make for an amusing adventure. Jen and I had been friends since freshman year biology class. Despite our differences, with her believing in spiritual phenomena and me remaining ever skeptical, we still got along fabulously. She was always trying to convince me that ghosts, auras, psychics, and the like truly existed. I would laugh and shake my head at her enthusiasm, but it was all in good fun. When we arrived at the creaky old house after driving down a long, secluded dirt road, I admit I felt unnerved. The peeling paint, cobwebs, and overgrown vegetation gave off a sinister vibe, but I told myself it was atmosphere and nothing more. Little did I know that by the end of the weekend I would never look at the world the same way again. The house seemed strangely quiet and still, as if it was holding its breath. The owner, an elderly man named Walter, gave us a quick tour. He said he lived nearby but rented out the house for extra income. Jen and I picked our bedrooms and unpacked. We decided to have a glass of wine out on the creaky porch. The wind rustled through the bare tree branches as we sipped our wine. When it started to get dark, we headed back inside. That night, I tossed and turned in the antique four-poster bed, unable to sleep. Sometime after midnight, I heard the floorboards outside my room creaking, as if someone was walking down the hall. The footsteps paused right outside my door. My heart pounded as I stared wide-eyed into the darkness. After a few terrifying moments, the footsteps slowly continued down the hall. The next morning, I asked Jen if she had been wandering around during the night. She said no. I shrugged it off as the house settling or my imagination. The second night, I again heard the ominous creaking footsteps stop outside my door. I pulled the blankets over my head like a scared child, praying for the sound to go away. On our last day, as we packed our bags to leave, I worked up the courage to ask Walter about the footsteps. His cheerful demeanor changed instantly. He avoided eye contact and mumbled that we should be on our way. I knew he was hiding something. As we drove off, I saw a filmy figure watching us from an upstairs window. A chill went down my spine. I now truly believed that house was haunted by a ghost with unfinished business. I'll never forget my terrifying stay at that Airbnb. When I got home, I immediately went online to search for more information about the old Victorian house. To my shock, I found several blog posts and forum discussions from past guests describing eerie occurrences and ghostly encounters at the exact same Airbnb. One guest reported hearing a crying woman's voice and having objects move on their own. Another saw a ghostly figure of an older man staring at them from across the hallway late at night. The reports matched my own unsettling experiences. I shuddered thinking back to those creepy footsteps outside my bedroom door and the sad, angry presence I felt in the house. After years of skepticism, I now knew that the supernatural was real. The haunted Airbnb had changed my entire worldview in one fateful weekend. Though part of me wished I could unlearn what I now knew, I couldn't deny the strange happenings I witnessed with my own eyes and ears. I learned that in the early 1900s, a controversial doctor had turned the basement into a makeshift surgical suite. He had lost his medical license, but continued to perform procedures on desperate patients under the cover of darkness. Many of the risky, illegal surgeries resulted in disfigurement, infection, and even death. The tormented spirits of the doctor's victims were said to still dwell in that basement over a century later. Reading these disturbing accounts, I shuddered remembering the faint cries and glimpses of ghostly figures Jen and I had experienced. It all started to make sense now. The doctor who once operated on helpless patients in the shadowy basement was likely the source of the unrest that haunted this home. As a scientist, I had to now accept that some stains can permeate a building, transcending rational explanation. My philosophical beliefs would never be the same after my brush with the supernatural at this troubled old house. As a single mom, I was thrilled when I was finally able to purchase the old cabin upstate. It had been my dream for years to fix up the rundown building and rent it out on Airbnb as a way to earn some extra income. The cabin was located on a large wooded property overlooking a lake, the perfect cozy getaway spot. After months of work refurbishing the two-bedroom cabin, I was excited to start welcoming guests. My first few bookings went smoothly, with guests raving about how peaceful and beautiful the setting was. It was a warm summer evening when the notification popped up on my phone. I had a new booking request. I opened the app to find that a guest named Mark had requested to stay at my cabin for a weekend. The booking request seemed normal enough, so I accepted it. A few days later, Mark arrived at the cabin. He was a quiet, unassuming guy in his mid-30s. After showing him around the place and making sure he was settled in, I figured I wouldn't hear much from him during his stay. Later that first night, though, I was startled awake by my phone ringing at 2 a.m. It was Mark, and he sounded anxious. "Sorry to call so late," he said, "but I was just wondering, has anyone ever said this place is haunted?" I assured him no, though privately I wondered why he would ask such a thing. We said goodnight, and I tried to go back to sleep, but Mark's question nagged at me. The next day, I didn't hear anything from Mark. The following night, however, he called me again after midnight. "I'm sorry, I know it's late," he said. "I just had to ask again. Are you sure this place isn't haunted? I thought I heard some strange noises earlier." At this point, I was getting worried. I told Mark very firmly that no, there were no ghosts, and that old cabins like mine often make odd sounds at night when the wood settles and the wind blows. Mark seemed reassured, though the next day when I drove up to the cabin to check on him, he seemed pale and jittery. He cut his stay short and insisted on leaving that very afternoon. After he left, I walked through the empty rooms, wondering what had spooked him so badly. Had it just been an overactive imagination? Or had Mark seen or heard something in those quiet nights that I could not? The questions lingered, even after I rented the cabin out again. Had something strange seeped into those old walls? I'll never know for sure, but Mark's odd, frightened questions will always haunt me. I just couldn't understand why Mark was the only guest who had experienced anything out of the ordinary. None of my other guests had mentioned hearing strange noises or sensing anything sinister. Mark was the first and only guest to ever ask if the cabin was haunted. I ran through our interactions over and over, wondering if there was some sign I had missed, some clue as to why Mark had such a profoundly unsettling stay. But in the end, it remained a mystery. Whatever had frightened him so badly, he had faced it alone. As a marketing director for a large tech company, I'm used to attending countless conferences and seminars. It's tiring work, constantly traveling from one event to the next, shaking hands and giving presentations, but it's part of the job. This particular conference was located in a quaint town a few hours outside the city. I decided to save my company some money and booked an Airbnb instead of the overpriced hotels in downtown. The Airbnb was a charming little house on the edge of town, much more peaceful than the usual busy, sterile hotel rooms I'm accustomed to. After a long day of panels and networking, I couldn't wait to check in and unwind. After arriving and putting my bags down, I decided to take a quick shower before bed. The hot water felt great on my sore muscles. These long conference days really take it out of me. I got out of the shower, put on some comfy pajamas, and headed to the bedroom. As I went to hang my towel in the closet, I noticed the closet door was open just a crack. That's odd, I thought. I'm sure I closed it all the way when I arrived. I opened the door further and reached in to hang my towel on the hook on the back of the door. As I did, I thought I saw a shadow in the corner of the closet shift slightly. I jumped back, heart racing. No, it was just my eyes playing tricks on me after a long day. This old house probably makes all kinds of creaking noises. I went to bed, but sleep did not come easy. I tossed and turned, thinking about that closet. There's no way someone could be in there, right? The owners seemed so nice. But still, I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. Eventually, I must have drifted off, because I awoke sometime later to the sound of creaking floorboards. I bolted upright, listening intently. There it was again, the distinct sound of footsteps, and they seemed to be coming from inside the closet. This is crazy, I thought. I have to investigate. I slowly crept towards the closet, heart thumping wildly in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I flung open the door, ready to confront whoever or whatever was inside. It was empty, just some coats and boxes on the floor. I let out a huge sigh of relief. It must have just been the house settling or something. Feeling a bit silly but also exhausted, I got back into bed. As I drifted off, I couldn't shake the image of that shifting shadow I had seen earlier. One thing was certain. I wouldn't be getting a good night's sleep tonight. I tossed and turned the rest of the night, jumping at every little creak and groan of the old house. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep. Morning finally came, and with it blessed sunlight to chase away the uneasiness of the night. I quickly packed my bags and left the Airbnb, still puzzled by what I had experienced. Part of me wanted to tell the owners, but a larger part just wanted to put the whole thing behind me. It was probably just my exhausted mind playing tricks on me. Working long hours and living out of hotel rooms is enough to make anyone a bit jumpy. As I drove to the conference center for the last day of events, I decided to just ignore it. Focus on the presentations, grab some coffee, and make it through this final day. But as I went through the motions, I couldn't totally shake the lingering doubt, the sense that something was off about that Airbnb. I guess I'll never know for sure what it was. Some mysteries just aren't meant to be solved.